Okay, more things we can do with text. I've removed most of the effects. I think I'm going to take off the ripple, but since it was animated, I may decide I want to keep it later. So for that respect, if I delete the ripple effect by selecting it and just hitting delete, it's gone and forgotten. But the little effects checkbox over to the left of an effect, if you click on that, it just turns it off, but you keep it, so you can just turn off the effect and not worry about it. In the text layer itself, there's an option over here called animate, and what it allows, by clicking on it, it gives you all the properties of the text that you can animate. And before, I was using the transform opacity to fade on and off. In this case, because that would be global for everything on the layer, and with the text you can sort of subdivide things a little bit more. So sometimes it's more of an advantage of just animating specific properties via this little widget here. So if I click on this and just say animate opacity, that gives me on the surface the same effect. Here, I'm going to key that and then come down, let's just say 20 frames. Yeah. And I'm going to animate it down to 0. And there's the fade up. That's pretty much the same as we had with the transform, but with the transform, that's all you can do. And with the properties directly applied to the text, you also get this range selector. And if I open this up, what this allows you to do is basically use the opacity. And I'm going to take this back down to 0, or come down here to the middle. Let's say there. And by bringing up the start, I've created a type on. So if that's an effect that you're looking for, this is how you would do it. If I take that all the way up and then start taking this down, if you start from end, starts from the end and goes to the beginning, and starts at the beginning and goes to the end. So if I wanted to key that, what I'm going to do is come back to the beginning and just key my start. And then on the opacity, I'm going to jump up to the next keyframe, and I'm going to take my type on property and run that up to 100%. And what you'll see is a mixture, because I also upped this back up, so I'm going to bring this back down like so. And if I were to play it, there's our type on, like so. So that's a quick way to do that. I also don't actually need the opacity keyed. Sometimes it competes. So if I take off the animation of the opacity and just leave the opacity at 0, then I just animate under the range selector the start. That's how I get my type on. And that'll give you a much cleaner one. It's much better just not to key them both unless you specifically are trying for an effect. But if you just want the type on, just leave your opacity set to 0 and animate your start time, like so. Okay, and now I'm going to remove this animation and actually, okay, and then just bring my opacity back up. So I've got this. Now another effect that you might want to try is maybe animating the tracking or the spacing. So I'm going to say animate tracking, and that's going to get, I'm going to close up my range selector. Okay, so we've got the tracking and the tracking amount. So on the first frame, I'm going to adjust this out like so, key it, and then just come down the timeline. Let's say about a second, and scale these back in like so to 0. And so now we've got that animation. So anytime, any type of movement that you would want, as far as spacing, this is probably the best way to do it. And then on top of that, if I wanted to, let's say, instead of putting a blur over the whole thing, I'm just doing a blur here. And we're going to start at the first frame, key that. Let's just blur this out. Let's say like that. And then I'm going to come down to the spacing here and set the blur down to 0. And if we cache it, like so. So these are all properties that can be added to the text themselves via the animate widget. All quite convenient for you, but just play around with it, see what else you can come up with. You got the fill color if you want to change the color of the letters, skew, scale, rotate. Just add them in one at a time as you need them, and see what you get. That's it for this little edition, and I will set up for the next one.